All right, for those just tuning in, we just finished up our matchup between the DeathWatch and the Grey Knights, with a final score, DeathWatch 71 to a Grey Knight 61. Very, very close game, down to 10 points, low-scoring game. A lot of destruction, and as I've said in some other videos and some other matchups, I did a lot more damage to you this game than I've done in the last couple ones, which is where it comes in with the Grey Knights. And like I've said, I feel like it's my strongest faction. I feel like one of the biggest weaknesses going into this matchup for me is I don't have as many reps as you do. And one thing that isn't taught, I don't think we talk about enough, is list hopping and getting reps in with the army that you want to play. You can't, once you get an army that you think you like, that you feel like it has a good fold to it, you got to get in some reps with it. You got to be able to see where the damage is going to hit, what it's going to be able to do, so that when you make plays, you're able to remove targets and not leave stray things behind that can then turn around and end up costing you the game. Such an example is your Indomitor kill team. Your Indomitor kill team lands into positions where it's able to eliminate stuff. And that's obviously, like, you look at the data sheet itself and you look at the abilities that you have, like, go through them all real quick on how that all stacks, how much you get from them.
The Indomitors shoot pretty well on their own. When their special ability is +2 strength, and they shoot the nearest eligible target. So because I'm upping and downing them, I can kind of position them so that they have, the nearest eligible target is what I want it to be.
Typically at least strength 7, so you're getting minimal 3s into most infantry.
Yeah. The bolters, the bolt rifles and the heavy bolters get up to strength 7, and they're all AP2 base, 2 damage or 3 damage to the heavy bolters, so they can get a lot of work done. And then I have all my shooting strats where they can either get a +1 AP or ignore cover, or I can make them anti-infantry 2-up. That's kind of handy in certain matchups when you're playing against, say, Custodes or Death Guard with their Death Shroud Terminators. They're T6, neg 1 to wound. Well, if I just put anti-infantry 2-up on those guns, it doesn't matter. They're going to be wounding on 2s anyway. So, lots of little tricksy things. I can kind of customize them. The only trick is, a whole lot of vehicles can be tough to chew through. But I got the speeder in there to give me that +1 to wound into the vehicles.
And there's the Oath of Moment. Like you said, you do have you have the Oath of Moment. You have the access, because they're a DeathWatch unit. You have access to sustained hits or lethal hits. Lethal hits being very strong going into those vehicles because you can just bypass that wound aspect. You do have 4 different melta weapons in there as well too. You extend the range, so now you're deep striking a melta range, which is something not many armies can do. I don't actually know any offhand that have that ability to just land without using a strat to maybe drop within 6 or something like that. So, but the big point is with all that is it looks great on paper. You land in the wrong place, that squad gets vaporized. Yes, they're toughness 6, but they're still a 3-up save and 3 wounds. And those are weapons that we see currently in the game. So if you go and throw that Indomitor kill, if you went and threw that Indomitor kill team out there in the center of the field on turn 2, it's gone.
Yeah, I have to play with them pretty reserved. And I talked about that in my video beforehand, is that I don't have a ton of big heavy-hitting units. And even though they are T6, 3 wounds apiece, and I have access to armor contempt, there are just tons of profiles, damage profiles that'll chew through them. There are lots of things out there that are damage 3, lots of guns and close combat weapons that'll just chew through them. So I do have to be careful how I position them. That's why I wanted more of the smaller scoring units to be out there, be on objectives, and kind of force my opponent to have to put their things out there to try to kill them. And then I can counter with my big heavy-hitting units. So that was the plan. They kind of worked for the most part. You had to put a lot of work into those infiltrators to get them taken care of, and then my slap back there in turn 2 was enough to do a lot of damage, pick up a couple Dread Knights and that sort of thing.
I did, but I was happy I was able to get them off the field. I didn't have to fully overexpose myself into it, and I tried to make you, once you rapid ingressed your DeathWatch kill team, the only thing I could think was I'm going to counter rapid ingress with Castle and Crow and company, so that when you try and charge them or try to overwatch them down. It was all successful except for the fact that you still took out the Dread Knight. I wanted to get that Dread Knight over into the next turn. Having that Dread Knight into the next turn would have been huge for me to be able to hold that objective. And from that point, I wasn't ever able to get that objective back, which really hurt. especially being so close to me, you having that objective and not being able to take yours away in the same time frame. We were talking about this during the game, is that there one turn where you skunked me on primary and went for 15 on primary. That was the turn I was like, I feel like this is the turn where I lost the game right there. Because this was a 10-point game where that turned into a 15-point swing. You know, had I kept you at an average of like the 10 and then was able to score my 10, now I'm able to keep up with you. And I guess I think the math works out better in my favor, but not even worrying about that. It was the factor I couldn't get through those things. And I feel like some of that comes down to the reps and being able to get the reps in there and knowing, especially with Grey Knights, especially with being able to pick up the units, putting them back down in that sense, being able to know which units I want to do in those scenarios. Like initially when we were even talking to deployment, I was like, I'm not really sure exactly what I want to put in reserve on this. And that's going to be a big part that I want to look back into, is how that deployment works. A comment you made real quickly before you rolled the dice, see who rolls the dice to win the game. In this matchup, it's very hard for either one of us to play out of going first.
Well, most of my practice games, I've been getting ready for the GT that I'm playing in this weekend. Most of my practice games, when I'm playing with a friend of the channel, Zach, I have intentionally been going first with my DeathWatch into him to practice having to go first. When I go second, I definitely have an advantage. And either of us would have an advantage in this game by going second because of the uppy downies. But I've intentionally been practicing going first because that's the bigger challenge for the DeathWatch, both because of the uppy downies, but also that Judicar and the rapid ingress. Rapid ingress is almost always better if you go second. So on turn 2, they go first, you can rapid ingress, and then in your turn 2, you can get into them with your unit. So yeah, it's definitely an advantage going second for both of our armies.
I was really impressed with the Brotherhood Champion. I mean, he does hit hard as it is. But, before I was running him with a 10-man squad because I felt like I needed that extra damage, that 5-man was fine. The 5-man was able to pick up quite a few things, and they were able to run around the field. I didn't pick them up at all the entire game. They just stayed there and defended home and just ran around slapping things. And, I mean, they went in there into the Watchmaster, and it's like, it doesn't even matter. Once I get down to him, he's just going to do the mortal wounds and sweep them through. And then,
re-rolling all hits and re-rolling all wounds and then doing mortals every time you do a successful wound is pretty strong, especially in the infantry profiles.
Yeah, so I really am liking him. I'm not sure some tweaks. The servitors were just kind of slapped in there because of the 50 points. But on the opposite side, they definitely well up in their points by, I think they took down 2 plasma inceptors and one of the guys out of the Indomitor kill team. So
yeah, it's a lot of points.
I mean, for those little 50-point servitors, yeah, and it's just stray fire. Typically, like I said, their role is, once I sticky that home field objective, get out there and do other stuff. Part of me kind of thinks, and I'm going to look into some things and look into options. But I mean, there's a part of me that's considering dropping the one squad of interceptors that I have and switching it over into a squad of strike. And I think if I do that and maybe drop the enhancement that I didn't use on the Grandmaster, I probably could get another Brotherhood Champion in there and have 2 5-man. Now, granted, that one's not going to have the mortal wound output, but that's still a fight for a squad that can just run around and get into trouble. So that might be something I look into. But all in all, I think the biggest weakness going into this was just the lack of reps that I have and not being able to fully judge some of those scenarios. You have your list, you've got a lot. I mean, how many games have you gotten in with not even just this list, but the variations tweaking with this thing?
A lot. Yeah, I've been playing a lot lately, and I try to play into the best opponents I can to get the practice. And I don't know how many reps I've gotten, a bunch, though. I have played around with Blood Angels a little bit in the past, but I kind of locked into DeathWatch a month or 2 ago, and I've just been playing them. So they're my babies. We're going to run the DeathWatch whenever we can. But I think when you're playing an uppy downy army, the trick is not secondaries. The trick is making sure you're getting primaries. Because if your opponent has presence on the board in the midfield objectives and you're uppy downy, you have to be 9 inches away, it just makes it hard for you to get onto primary objectives, those midfield no man's land objectives. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on, is having some small units to go out there and get on objectives, and then later in the game put the bigger units out there, get them out there. But because if you don't have that, because for you scored 15 on primaries but 30 on secondaries, or 36
on second.
36 on secondary. So yeah, like that was obviously, you were doing great with secondaries with the Grey Knights uppy downing and having all the units that you could throw out. And one guy survives out of the squad, and you pick him up, and then boom, he scores containment or something like that. So
suddenly he turns containment into 6, or a sabotage for 6 on the quarter in a piece of terrain that none of your guys can get to in that sense. So yeah, and there's a lot of advantages, especially with Grey Knights, to be able to do that stuff, because it's free and I can just pick up 3 units. My biggest thing is, I think that, like we discussed before, like I was jumping around with a lot of armies, and I've been playing a lot of different stuff into you because we knew you were getting ready for the GT. So I ran a bunch of different Necron stuff, was kind of getting discouraged with how some of that going. And I said I wanted to get an army ready for a GT. So hopefully over the course of the next couple weeks, I'll be able to get some reps in with the Grey Knight list. Might tweak it a little bit, but we'll definitely have this as a rematch after I kind of get the Grey Knights a little more tailored and get them ready to go, because, I mean, the girls are going to start sleeping eventually, and I'm getting the GT itch. I need to get out there.
Don't jinx yourself.
Listen, they have to sleep eventually, okay?
It took my youngest one 3 years to sleep through the night, so don't jinx yourself.
Yeah, but I'm getting that itch where I want to get to a GT. And here soon, definitely, and I feel like it's going to be the Grey Knights that I'm going to end up taking. So there's definitely some more stuff I want to try. One of the silly things we were talking about is going a little deeper with the purgation squads, just because of how much just guns and just artillery to be able to put down, and especially with this detachment being able to have the full rerolls to hit, might be fun. But I think I'm in the right direction for what I want to run. Like, I feel like my Dread Knight count is good with the 3 of them. Some people might argue not to run the Grandmaster. If I don't run the enhancement, I might consider it. I do like having his full rerolls to hit, wound, and damage going into monster and vehicle, especially since we're up and down a lot. I feel like I can get away with it, just having the 1. But definitely the other 2 with the advance, fallback, charge, and all their shenanigans is very strong. And probably just need to mess around with it more to get them in positions where they can play into that later portion of the game. So, and I think it all just comes down to reps. Like, I'm going to go over and I'm going to watch our video and watch our game when I go to edit everything. And it's going to be things where I'm going to see scenarios where it's like, and even as we're talking about this, I'm wondering if there was space that I could have got when you had your Indomitor kill team, that you just put them right back down right in there. I wonder if there was space that I could have landed the purifiers and then put the strike within 6 inches or just outside of 6 and charge that Indomitor kill team and hit them in like turn 2 or something like that. So I'm curious. I know you had the jump infantry over there. I don't know exactly where they were positioned at that point. Might not have been able to, but I'm definitely curious to see if there was a way I could have gotten to them before they got to me. And that's going to be a big thing to see with that, and see where that situation was. The Talon Strike, I feel like I let them do way too much. The fact that they got to my home field objective, I feel like I neglected them, and I needed to get to them. I should have probably put more onto them and tried to take them out quicker. I think that's a big one that I probably neglected them. And and then just, I don't, as far as this game was concerned, dice, excuse me, it seemed even. We had a couple, we had some stuff, we used some strats, we had some invulns, we had some saves, and everything seemed really on the number. I just think my biggest weakness is I haven't played Grey Knights in a while, as some people mentioned on the channel of like, wow, it's been a while. Yes, it has. And I think that I'm out of practice with them, and I need to get some more reps in there, and then I'll give your DeathWatch a good smacking.
Yeah. I got some other stuff I want to try, though. Once we get done with this GT, I want to try some goofy stuff. So we'll talk more about that later. But I have some fun stuff I want to try.
Definitely. And I'm not just going to go. It's not going to be like a Grey Knight. It's not going to be Grey Knight for the rest of winter and going into spring. I have some other stuff that I want to try out as well, too. AdMech, haven't seen the table in a very long time. We have that new detachment. I still haven't run that. Miss my robots, miss my boys. So I definitely want to get them back on the channel here. and World Eaters. I have a lot of fun with World Eaters. So I definitely want to see them. I think we've done Blood Angels versus World Eaters, I believe.
Yeah, I think I did the Angelic Host one into that. Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. But we do have a lot of other armies and other fancy stuff that we want to put out here on the channel and bring here. So it's not just going to be all Grey Knights, but I'm definitely going to be pretty focused on getting them ready, getting them painted, getting them geared up so that I can take them to a GT here in the next coming months. Because, man, I'm getting that itch. And I definitely could use a little bit of a break. I've earned a little bit of a vacation, I do believe. All right. Any closing thoughts? Are you ready for this GT? How you feeling?
I don't know if I'm ready. Like I said, I wish I could have more damage output, but then I sacrificed too many scoring units. So I think it's a good balance, but I'll see. Because there's a lot of things in the meta I just haven't played into. We got Eldar out there now. I haven't played into Imperial Guard. I don't think there's a whole lot of people signed up for the GT. I think they only have like 40 or 45 people signed up for it. So who knows? I don't know what I'm going to run into.
I think the biggest plus minus I see right now is, like you've mentioned before, you do still struggle into vehicles, but you have the ability to up down. So you have mobility to kind of, where vehicles most part have to move around terrain. You can kind of get around that and kind of hide from them and try to mitigate what the vehicles are able to do and what they're able to see.
Yeah.
So I think
I do pretty well into large, big, huge units. Like if someone's running Knights and they got a bunch of the big ones, I do pretty well into those. It'd be more of a challenge if I was playing against, say, Chaos Knights and they had 13 little Knights. Like it's going to be hard for me to chew through.
Or the Imperial Guard with a bunch of tanks.
Yeah.
Like a tank company of Imperial Guard. Yeah.
Stuff
like
that. Playing into your dread mob, that you basically had 4 or 5 big units of vehicles where I was able to focus them down. But if it's a ton, if somebody's got 10, 12, 13 smaller T10 vehicles, it's going to be tough for me to play.
Not to complain though, but the cannons have kind of a weird toughness value into that because they're vehicle unit, but they're T6. And like we were looking at it, like your Indomitors are T6 with 3 up saves. And I mean, granted, they're 5 wounds instead of 3, but it is still kind of, they're a little bit on the lighter side for it as compared to most vehicles. Is something I would have been interested to see if we had enough time, would have been to run the AdMech into you. And especially with that new detachment, man, you can get the Castle and robots up to like toughness 11. And having a squad of robots that's toughness 11 might actually be kind of interesting. Because that's like, that gets like when I saw it go, oh, you can go toughness 9, toughness 10. It's like, oh, that's cool. That isolates some weapons. But then when you jump over in that T11, it's kind of like, ooh, there's...
And they're 2 up armor too, right? That'll be hard to chew through.
I believe so, yeah. 2 up, 4 up, I believe is what they are. It's been a while since I look at the data sheet. And I still know that when I make a 6 for a save, you take a mortal wound.
Yeah, that's fun.
Love that rule. Favorite rule. All right. Well, good luck this weekend. Drive safe. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.